There's news in the NFL today, and it's time to break it down in the only way we know how. Hot Route style, with our spin on football headlines with a mix of frozen tundras, neck rolls, and grass-stained jersey.
Hello and welcome back to Hot Routes. I'm your host, as always, Paul Hodowanic, and with me today, Dane Mizutani of the Pioneer Press, the MN Wild beat reporter, and lots of covering of the Vikings for you too, Dane. So I was excited to have you on. We're going to do a little bit of NFL, NHL crossover, as the Wild are obviously in the thick of the playoff hunt, just had the Winter Classic, big times for the Minnesota Wild, but want to talk a lot of Vikings with you. Excited to get your takes on what was a dismal performance by the Vikings on Sunday. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm doing much better than I think Mike Zimmer's doing. So, and Kirk Cousins and every other member of the Vikings, I'm sure. So
yes. The energy in our call is better than what has to be going on in that locker room. It just inevitably has to be.
I don't know how you can, like, I was listening to Zimmer talk yesterday, and he's like, oh, yeah, it's about pride in week 18. Week 18 didn't even exist before this year. So, like, you can't even say, like, there's, like, a precedent of having pride in week 18. But I get what he's trying to say, but, like, there's nothing to play for this weekend. Like, how could you actually, like, as a player be like, yeah, let's get up and give everything we got for this disaster of a team that is going nowhere, like literally going nowhere. It would benefit the Vikings to lose this weekend because it would improve draft stock. So, yeah, I would imagine me and you have a lot more energy than those guys.
But luckily, the Bears are also in a similar boat. So it'll be a battle of teams that just want to get off the field. So I'm sure it'll be interesting. I'm going to the game as a fan with my family. They got tickets a while back. So we'll see how it goes. I think I'm going to have to convince them reasons to be excited about it. But let's jump in. Let's start by going back to the game on Sunday, because if you were anywhere over on Twitter or if you were just online at all, it was just angry Vikings fans. And one of the biggest points was that we weren't seeing Kellen Mond. Zimmer had the famous quote after the game, he doesn't want to see him. He sees him every day in practice. But I want to know, just was Sunday, I put it out on Twitter and got tons and tons of responses, but was Sunday a bigger indictment of Mond, Zimmer, or Spielman? Like, who deserves the blame for whatever disaster was going on? Is it Mond's fault he wasn't out there, that he's not progressing, or are you putting it on the other two? If you were going to rank them or just pick your top, where would you go in terms of, biggest indictment?
Sure. I feel like, so it's everyone, right? Like, and that's kind of a cop-out answer. Like, it is everyone's fault to a degree. Like, it's Kellen Mond's fault for being, like, I don't know. He can't, like, maybe he doesn't know the playbook. Maybe he just sucks. Like, it's his fault for not being good enough to be trusted in that game. It's Zimmer's fault for not being able to develop guys and not putting, like, it was clear from the moment they drafted Kellen Mond, or like back in training camp when they brought Sean Mannion in, Zimmer wasn't going to give this guy a chance. And I think, like, that's partially on Mond, but that's partially on, like, the rigidness of Zimmer. And, like, Zimmer was an ass after the game. Like, like, that quote was funny, but, like, you don't have to say that. Like, you don't have to tear a rookie down. I see him every day in practice, implying, like, why would I need to see him in a game? But at the end of the day, it's all on Spielman. And, like, I think it has to be with him. That you use the 3rd round pick on him. And you look at some of the guys that were taken, specifically Davis Mills, who was taken, I think, the pick after Kellen Mond or the pick before, one or the other, right there with in the same draft range as Kellen Mond. Like, Davis Mills is not changing life for the Houston Texans, but he's proven to be, like, a competent NFL quarterback. So that says right there that, like, there are people who can play the game in that little range right there. It's not every 3rd round quarterback has to sit a year. Every 3rd round quarterback is going to just be kind of clueless for the first year. Like, no, like, guys can play. It's on Spielman because he's the one who put Kellen Mond in this situation. He's the one who put Mike Zimmer in this situation. All of those things go back to Rick Spielman, and it goes back to his, like, inability to evaluate quarterback talent. Like, we've seen it from the jump, like, even going back to the Christian Ponder draft selection. Like, he played a role in that. And that was kind of the start of all of this, like, say what you want about Kirk Cousins. He's been good this year. But that was Rick Spielman's big swing. Like, we're going with Kirk Cousins. He's going to be my quarterback. I'm tying myself to him. We're in win now mode. Like, he can't evaluate quarterback talent, and he's proven that time and time again. So I think it has to fall, like most of the onus has to fall on Rick Spielman, because he's the one who put Mond in the situation, Zimmer in the situation, and the Vikings as a whole in this situation.
Yeah, one of the things when I'm talking to people who believe in Spielman, I mean, you can point out the wins pretty easily. Some of the draft picks that he's made,
Definitely.
like, undoubtedly he's had some of that, but in the past years he's lacked. And at that quarterback position, I mean, no GMs get as many tries at the apple as Spielman has had. I mean, he had Ponder, obviously didn't work out. Bridgewater didn't work out, but that was for reasons kind of outside of his control. So maybe you don't put much on him for that one. But then you have the Bradford experiment that doesn't work. You have, I mean, Keenum was just kind of a gap filler, but that worked for one season. You let him go because you think you have a chance to improve, and then you've never gotten close to back there with Kirk Cousins. Like, most GMs, most head coaches don't get that many cracks at a quarterback position. That's just how the league works. So yeah, I also had Spielman up there number one, and him and Zimmer work so closely in hand. But I mean, their comments from 2018 at the Combine, where Zimmer talks about the issue of paying a big quarterback, and he wanted to stick with a defensive philosophy, and Spielman wanted to go the other way. So yeah, I think Spielman deserves that at the top billing, and then Zimmer, and then Mond. But again, Mond isn't blameless either. I mean, I think the one series he had he almost threw a pick six. So not too much to be able to evaluate and judge Mond on that one series. And so he definitely has to be the least there, but no one is blameless. No one is blameless in it. So I think let's move on to number two. I want to talk, now that the Vikings are eliminated from the playoffs, we're looking to the future now. Most of these conversations are going to be looking to the future. And so I want to know your top 5 most important players for the Vikings future. I want you to rank them, maybe start with 5, go down to 1. Just the five players that are going to mean the most going forward.
Sure. Yeah, that's hard, because I think you look at this team right now, and like a lot of people, when a team misses the playoffs, like it's like, oh, we got to go full rebuild. And you don't. If you're the Vikings, you have a lot of talent, right? Like a ton of talent on this team. So I was thinking 5, like, and like kind of stay with me on here. It has to be Christian Darrisaw to me, and it's because you drafted him as your left tackle of the future. I don't know if he's good yet. Like, he's proven to be, there's sometimes he looks good, sometimes he looks overmatched. He's certainly not Rashawn Slater or Penny Sewell from this draft. But if you're moving forward and you used a first-round pick on a left tackle who's going to protect, whether it's Kirk, whether it's, I don't know, the guy you draft in the draft this year or a free agent, like, this guy has to show up. Like, Rick Spielman has missed on a lot of picks. The jury's still out on Christian Darrisaw, but I'm putting him at 5 because the Vikings need him to be a piece for the future. We don't know if he is yet, but I think it's important if they're going to be good down the road, if they're not going to go full rebuild, if they're just going to kind of try and patch this thing together and use they have a lot of talent on this team. I think Christian Darrisaw has to be a big part of it. The next player, 4, I'll go Eric Kendricks. I would put Daniil a lot higher, but I don't know what Daniil's future looks like. And so I think this defense belongs to Eric Kendricks now. I think the defense as a whole was really disappointing this year, but Eric Kendricks time and time again proves his worth. He proves how good he is. Still super underrated too. Like, I think across the league, I think announcers still call him Michael Kendricks, even though like he's so much better than his older brother now. And like, he's the guy. He's kind of the straw that stirs the drink for the Vikings defense. And I think he will be moving forward. You have him under contract now. When Eric Kendricks 4, and then it's all offensive side of the ball here from here on out. Because I think whoever takes over this Vikings team, if Zimmer's gone, you're taking over because that offense is really good. The offense is dynamic. You have playmakers across the board. I'm not a Kirk guy, as you know, I'm sure, as caller, I'm sure knows. I think it's got to be Kirk 3, because either you're sticking with him next year and you're just committing to him for the next however many years, you're re-signing him to an extension, or he's someone who you're going to hope can groom the next guy. I don't think it's like, I've seen, the rhetoric on Twitter where it's like, let's try and just trade Kirk for a first and a third. Like that seems too easy and too good to be true with that contract. If they can do that, I think they will, but I don't think they're going to be able to do that. I don't think any team is going to give you that much draft capital and then in turn pay that much salary on top of that. So I think I'm putting Kirk 3, not because he's someone I think the Vikings are going to build around 10 years down the road, but because I think he could kind of help them transition into the next phase or take one last big swing. You've seen it with teams in the past. Maybe they weren't good this year or that year, but then the pieces kind of all came together for one more run. I think the Vikings are capable of that. I don't know if Kirk's capable of that, but if the Vikings are going to make a run at any point, it's going to be with Kirk Cousins under center as opposed to anybody else. And if they are going to transition to a new quarterback, I think Kirk Cousins is going to have to be a guy who's willing to or in the position to lead that guy into the future. 2 is Dalvin Cook. We heard Zimmer say yesterday he's one of our best players. We need to run the ball more. I'm not for running the ball more. I think it's a passing league. You saw it with Cincinnati the past 2 weeks. Joe Burrow went for 500 yards. They went for 450. They won the division. I think you should transition more to a pass-heavy game. That being said, I think Dalvin Cook is a weapon more than he is a running back. I think you can get him the ball in creative ways, and the Vikings are better when he gets more touches. So I see what Zimmer was saying there. You got to run more. But you just got to get him more touches, I think, like whether it's getting the ball out in space, screens, swing passes, wheel routes, whatever. Obviously handoffs here and there. But Dalvin's their second best player, no doubt. And then Justin Jefferson's one. It's easy. I can make an argument that he's the best receiver in the league.
Sure.
I know what Devontae Adams did the other night. But Justin Jefferson, the first 2 seasons he's had, is better than any receiver in NFL history. He's always open. He's like literally someone who can transcend like all the kind of talent around him. It doesn't matter who he's going against. It doesn't matter who's throwing him the ball. I guess it did on Sunday when Sean Mannion was throwing him the ball. But overall, like he's the guy. He's someone that you can build around. It sounds crazy because Randy Moss just lives in lore in Minnesota, but like Justin Jefferson can be better than him. And there's no doubt about that. Like he won't dominate in the same way where it's like there was something special about watching Culpepper throw to Moss and then Moss just literally become a verb and moss people and jump over people. But Justin Jefferson's bag might be bigger. Like he runs better routes. He's willing to go over the middle. He's willing to do all these things, and he has great ball skills. It's early. It's year 2. A lot of time to go. But moving forward, Justin Jefferson's going to be the guy for the Vikings. And I think you're in good hands because, like I said, this is a rebuild is not required. I don't think. I think there's talent that's good enough here.
Awesome. All right, I'll give you my 5 quickly, and I like it because we have a difference in our layouts. 5, I actually have Brian O'Neill.
Okay.
Really good right tackle, has been just a really, really solid piece, and we've seen how bad this offensive line can be. And if they have competent tackle play with him and Darisaw, I think it's important. And Darisaw is going to be on my list further down. So I think we've seen my list is 4 offensive players, 1 defensive player. I think that's just the way the league's trending, obviously. So O'Neill 5, I have Danielle Hunter 4. Just for the fact of if he plays or if he doesn't, regardless, he's an important piece to whatever the Vikings' future looks like. So that might not even be playing, but it means trading him for draft capital, and then you're turning that into something. I mean, when he's not out there, the defensive line struggles. We've seen that. They've been able to get some sacks, but their pressure rate has not been good, and the sacks are not going to be stable moving forward. So if they don't have Danielle at any point next season, without any major acquisitions, like that defensive line is going to struggle again, it looks like. So Danielle was 4 for me. 3 is Darisaw, just to the importance of a left tackle and all that can mean to your team being so young, being on a rookie contract. If right away he's going to be good, he's going to be solid, and you're going to have him for like 3-4 more years on a smaller deal, that is really, really pivotal, really important, and a feather in their cap, especially if they're going to be paying a quarterback a lot of money like Kirk. If you're not paying your left tackle, some of that money then can go to the quarterback. That is a really, really important spot. 2, I have Kirk Cousins, kind of for the same reasons as Danielle. He may not be on the team, but Kirk Cousins is going to significantly impact the Vikings' future into next season, into 2-3 seasons from now, whether he's on the team or not. If he's gone, he's still a really important piece because of what that means for the roster. So he's 2, and then Justin Jefferson's 1. I think it's generally weird to not have a quarterback as your top most important player just for the amount of impact they have on the game. For pretty much every team, the quarterback is the most important. But to me, it might be Justin Jefferson because of the promise he gives. And honestly, like, you can't really go into full rebuild. And if there's no hope in the next 1 or 2 years with a rebuild, like, Jefferson's not going to want to keep signing here. He's not going to want to stay here. It's going to be a dig situation. So he is a really, really pivotal piece, both to the on-field and off-field aspects, because the Vikings need to keep him happy. He is the franchise at this point. And he again, like you said, no doubt in my mind, he is the most important player on the Vikings. And I think that's a unique situation for a lot of teams. I think almost every team, their quarterback is the most important player. So for the Vikings to have someone else that speaks to the talent of Justin Jefferson and what he could be. All right, let's move on. I want to do some NHL, NFL crossovers because that is your lane. You cover both teams. So as our Hot Routes NHL expert, I want to know best like NHL player or maybe Wild player that could come over, play in the NFL, and then vice versa. The best NFL Vikings player that can come over, you think, hop on the ice and do some stuff.
Sure. Yeah, I was thinking about this last night when you sent this question over. The first name that came to mind, and this is like a Minnesota angle, was Anders Lee. Like, the dude was just an outstanding athlete at Edina like 10 years ago. And he's really good he's obviously the captain of the Islanders now, but I'm pretty sure he had like scholarship offers to play like D1 quarterback at like Notre Dame. Like the kid was he was the golden boy in Minnesota. But like the more I thought about it, it's like, okay, you can be a really good quarterback at Edina and even a really good quarterback in college and not be like a quarterback in the NFL.
Sure.
So I dug a little deeper and went a little weirder. Like Ryan Reeves came to mind. Like he's a huge guy, like who's obviously like I could see him like lining up at fullback. I went with Zdeno Chara. Okay. He's 6'9", 260. Look, I don't like Zdeno Chara is like 100 years old. So like this is not now. Mm-hmm. But right now I think even like he has some sort of like matchup ability. Like, all right, stay with me. You're at the 5-yard line. You're at the 10-yard line. You split Zdeno Chara out wide against like a 5'10" cornerback and like just tell him to reach up and have your quarterback. Like I think the goal line fade is a highly ineffective play. It's pretty stupid. Like you're just going one-on-one. But he has a foot on the guy and like probably at least 60 pounds on the guy.
Yep.
I just thought it'd be funny to see, a 6'10" guy catching fade routes. He makes sense to me. I don't know. Like it's such a hard sport to like cross over because a lot of these guys are just like NHL players are good athletes. I don't want that to like get out there that I don't think they are. But a lot of these dudes like are just like kind of brute forces, like who are skillful with like on their skates and skillful with the stick in their hand. But like it's not always translatable. Like I see some of these guys throw the football around and it doesn't look great. Like their form is not amazing. So they're great athletes in their own right. But I think that's a hard crossover. NFL player to NHL player, I have to like just stick with the Minnesotan. Like I feel like Adam Thielen, like if he's such a good athlete that like, and he grew up in Minnesota, he can skate. Obviously he grew up on like the ponds. I feel like if Adam Thielen at some point in his youth or his adolescence decided like I want to play in the NHL, like that dude is such a good athlete. I feel like there had to have been a chance. So I just that's a cop out Minnesota answer, but I'll go with Adam Thielen. Dark horse Jalen Ramsey. He's the one who said he could like give him 2 weeks and he could play in the NHL. So one of those two.
For sure. And if you're a Minnesota sports follower and you follow the Timberwolves, Anthony Edwards said he could dominate in any sport. So he could come over, play NFL or NHL. I'm going to take his word for that. But yeah, I had Thielen. And then, yeah, my NHL knowledge was lacking a little bit. But I was just trying to think of enforcers for the Wild that could come over and play just like fullback, tight end, just like block some dudes, maybe go out, catch a pass. Foligno, I feel like would just be a good team guy, good in the NFL type locker room. And he's just going to go out. Maybe he's a Conklin type situation. I can see him having pretty good hands, could bring in some catches. So my answers will be both cop-outs, as I am not the NHL expert. But yes, Zdeno Chara definitely would be a sight to see on the football field. So I am praying that into existence. Last week we talked about if COVID got so bad, like who are you bringing in off the street? Maybe bring in, if NHL is really struggling, maybe one of the weeks they're off, you're, hey Chara, come on, just come over, run some routes and see what happens. I would
run straight. Yeah, you don't even have to run long routes. We'll play you like 10 plays a game. We'll just throw you the ball in the end zone. You could have 3 touchdowns and then go back to playing hockey.
All right, let's quickly hit one NFL topic. Every year it seems we get one wild card team that can push their way at least into the AFC Championship game, upset a couple teams, and get there. This year, I want to know who's the most likely in your mind to be able to kind of make that run from a wild card team and at least get to the championship game.
My gut was the Patriots, just because like there was a time 2-3 weeks ago we thought they were going to get the bye in the AFC. I've kind of changed my tune on that. I always thought the Patriots were kind of not fake, but I think they were like a little ahead of schedule. The defense is legit. I think Mac Jones is good in chunks, and that running game is good. But I think push comes to shove in the NFL, like your quarterback has to perform in the playoffs. I don't know if Jones is quite ready for that. I think at some point he will be. I think he's a good talent. I'm going to go with the Chargers. I think Justin Herbert, and they have to get in. Like they have to beat the Raiders this weekend to even make the playoffs. But if they make the playoffs, I don't think anyone wants to see them. Justin Herbert is a top 5 quarterback. He's dynamic. And I think, as I was saying like 2 seconds ago about quarterback play in the playoffs, it's when quarterbacks kind of take the next step, the next jump. And I think Herbert has the ability. He's proven that he has the arm. He's got the talent to do that. If he does it on a grand stage like this, I think we're starting to talk about Justin Herbert as like legitimately one of the best quarterbacks in the game. I think there's already chatter about that. Yeah. I think if he can put a little run together, something could happen there. I just think like there's so much talent on that team offensively with Eckler, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. I think they've underperformed at times this year. They lost to the Vikings, so you never know on any given week. But I think with the pieces they have there's some talent on the defensive side of the ball. It's not great, but Derwin James is really good. I look at the Chargers as someone who you don't want to play, and if they get the right matchups, they could win 2 games.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. That was going to be one of my picks. And I think generally people are thinking like, oh, the Colts, just because of the way they've been able to run the ball. But I can't trust Carson Wentz and what he does. Maybe he can put together one game, I feel like, but both of them are going to have to be on the road as a wild card team. He's going to have to go there and then maybe go, I don't know, to the Chiefs. Maybe if they get a good draw and they have the Titans, you can see that. Like, there are some opportunities in the AFC just with the way the Titans are. And if they're still not going to have Derrick Henry, they seem like a vulnerable 1 seed. So if a wild card team makes it out and plays them, they probably are the most likely, however the bracket ends up lining. So I like the Chargers there. And then just one NFC team, it's more bare over there. I think you can make the case for a lot of AFC teams to make a run. NFC, you don't feel great about many teams getting past the Packers, getting past the Bucks at full strength. But I think just after what the Cardinals did and Kyler did last week against the Cowboys, you at least have to put them in the conversation. Their stock was cratering, but they at least leveled themselves out. I think people now, I think they're going to be a tough team just to play because of Kyler and what he can do. He feels like more, especially if DeAndre Hopkins is in, he's going to will their team to 1 game and then maybe not a second. But just in terms of pure quarterback play, he's probably the best quarterback the best wild card quarterback that's out there. And so for that reason alone, I think you have to consider them as a team that can make a run. And I know they've cratered, but they at one point were undefeated, 10-0. They were a really, really good team. If they can get some of that back, I think they have to be considered and to at least get to the NFC Championship game. But yeah, it's funny how quickly these things change because the Colts were that team that everyone was feeling. Now they lose to the Raiders, and it's like, where's their ceiling? What's Carson Wentz going to be? Patriots had their time in the sun, and now they're falling a little bit. So it will be interesting. And I think we're going to have a lot of competitive wildcard teams, which is exciting. Maybe not the Eagles or the Saints or whoever comes in out of that. But we'll have some games. Finally, speaking of the Bucs, Antonio Brown, just wild, sad kind of for him. But I want to know for you in your daily life, what's like the smallest inconvenience that would cause you to pull an Antonio Brown, like take your shirt off, run around, like stomp your feet, and then just like calmly Uber away. I want to know just the smallest inconvenience in your life that's going to cause you to just go wild.
It's definitely slow people at the airport in airport security.
Yes.
I travel a lot for work. So like I'm always at the airport. Like I feel like I'm there like every week. And there's something about people who don't know how to like just put their things in a bin at like the security line. And then all of a sudden it goes from like everything is moving smoothly to the line is literally like 100 deep, because it doesn't take long at an airport for things to get like really, really log jammed. Mm-hmm. It's those people. It's the people who like, look, I know not everyone flies. I get it. Like, but I feel like we've had these new rules and like take your laptop out, take your shoes off. I've had them for like since I've been alive. So like people should know how to do that. Yeah. And so like if I'm waking up really early for a morning flight and I'm already grouchy and like, yes, it's that. It's 100% slow people in security at the airport. With like an honorable mention to like myself, like when I have dinner and I could just wash the plate and it would be fine, but I leave it in the sink and then like whatever I was eating the night before becomes 1,000 times harder to wash. Every morning that happens. I'm like, take the shirt off, leave the house. So one of those two.
Might as well just throw the dish away at that point.
Yeah, at that point, like let's just go to the store and buy new dishes. So
all right. Yeah, mine very similar, but just in any crowded area, whether it's the state fair or a stadium, the people that just are barely moving when they're walking, they're looking around. It's at the airport too. People are looking for their gate, and you know where you're going. And I'm not a fast walker. Like I like to take my time, but oh my God, weaving through people who are just like don't have any idea what's going on drives me insane. It drives me insane. Like just keep it moving or pull off to the side. You don't need to be standing in the middle, standing completely still. So very, very close to the airport one. But yeah, it just people drive me nuts, man. I don't know. It's crazy. And watching the Vikings on Sunday night with Sean Mannion. That can also cause me and many, many other Vikings fans some angst. So Dane, I appreciate you jumping on for this episode of Hot Routes. I'm sure we'll get you on at some point in the offseason when the Wild are off, the Vikings are off. We can talk some draft. We can talk some other stuff. We can talk some golf, one of our shared loves. Yeah. We'll get some, maybe I'll have to do a Hot Routes golf theme. But Dane, thank you so much for joining us. Really, really appreciate it.
Thanks, Paul.